Hey guys, I'm Aaron Edgar, and I'm an instructor here on Drumeo Edge. What we're going to do today is we're going to break down 3 of my favorite Benny Greb grooves. Now, we've got a full lesson on this in the Drumeo Edge library where we've got more than double this amount of grooves and we go far more in depth on it, but I wanted to give you guys a cool little taste of what's up inside the members area just for you on YouTube. Let's give it a shot. So this first groove is actually from a video that Benny uploaded a number of years ago. Happens to be the video that I was introduced to Benny in the first place with. I found this and fell completely in love with this guy's pocket. So let's get right into it. This is the second groove he plays. It's about 5 seconds in. The video is called Just Groovin'. You can YouTube it and I strongly suggest you check it out. It's ridiculous. Let's break this down a quarter note at a time. Let's talk about just the first bit. So we've got a bass drum lining up with both hi-hats, and the second one is going to be open. Now in between those, we've got a ghost note. Let's just start with that. All right, so for beat 2, we got to make sure that that open hi-hat closes right with the backbeat, followed by 2 equally spaced 16th note bass drums, and then that buzz. And really pay attention to that buzz in the middle to make sure it's just a nice fat buzz. We don't want it to be too open like this. It's got to be a nice just. So you really need a little bit of extra pressure between your index and your thumb to make that buzz happen. So we have basically snare, bass, bass, buzz. Those have to be nice and consistent. But, of course, with our hi-hats involved. The first 2 beats together sounds like this. Once we get into the next part of the beat, we have 2 more bass drums coming right after that sequence of 16th notes. So we've got snare, bass, bass, buzz, bass, bass. There's a whole bunch of notes going on. Let's just kind of hear what that sounds like on its own first. To really bring beat 3 together, we've got a hi-hat on the end on its own, followed by our second backbeat being on the of 3. So we have that funky sort of offbeat shot. Let's just hear what that's going to sound like. Now let's hear what we've got so far. And then finally, we basically just have a single stroke roll between our hi-hat and ghost notes on the snare drum. Let's throw up the metronome and give it a shot. I hope you guys like that beat. It's one of my favorites. It's got a bit of nostalgia for me since, again, that was the first video I ever saw of Benny Greb and just loved it. But let's move on. The next beat that we're going to tackle is from his album Grebfruit on the album titled song Grebfruit. And we've got a really cool, funky, syncopated pattern that he's playing lightly on a stack. Now, the thing that's going to be most challenging for most of you guys is going to be that 8th and 2 16th note pattern going on the stack. Let me just show you what that sounds like before we get into this. Now, if you can't play that throughout the beat, it's not the end of the world. You could just play 8th notes instead. But to really capture the flavor of what he's doing, you're going to want to throw that in. Let's just hear what the beat sounds like on its own first. So to break this pattern down, let's get rid of that eighth note, 2/16th note thing going on first. Let's just hear what it's going to sound like with a straight pattern. I'll put it on something tight like these hi-hats. So what we have, his hands are doing the same thing through the whole piece. That left hand is just playing a ghost note on the first quarter note E, then we're going for a backbeat E and So check this out, if we had like 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and So that goes on regardless of what's happening with your right hand or your bass drum. So let's just try and get that happening just on its own with the hi-hats. The next thing to add is the bass drum. First one is not so bad because it's just on beat 1. You probably want to put one there anyway. The hard part is especially the second bass drum, where it's lining up on the of 2. Then finally, we have a third bass drum on the and of 3. Let's put it all together nice and slow, again, still with just eighth notes on our riding surface. One of the last challenges before we move on to actually putting the whole thing together is the fact that that second bass drum lines up with the ghost note on your snare drum. Pay special attention to that ghost note, making sure that it's the same volume as all the other ghost notes. If that one comes up a little bit, it sort of messes with the vibe of the beat, just slightly. All right, so let's throw in the actual right hand pattern. We'll still keep it on the hi-hat so it's nice and crisp for now, but when we start actually playing it with some time, we're going to throw it back on the stack. All right, so this next beat is from Benny Greb's brass band album. The song is called Good Question, and it's got a really cool beat to it. It's a similar beat to this last one, but we have to pay special attention to our dynamics, especially on the stack. Let's go nice and slow and just hear what the beat sounds like on its own. One of the most important things you really need to focus on in this beat is getting those accents on the stack happening. And nice and clean at that. We want everything nice and quiet except for those two. So your right hand on its own is going to do this. Just like the last one, if those 2/16th notes at the end are a little too much for you to play cleanly, it's not going to make or break the groove if you remove them, but they help the flavor of the groove really stay authentic. Now the other thing is that we've got a really busy ghost note pattern happening through this. Let me just break that down nice and slow on a tight instrument like these hi-hats so you can just hear the groove for what's going on with the left hand. One of the hardest things to deal with these kind of patterns on the snare drum is going from an accented note immediately to an unaccented note. Now, what you're going to need to do, your stick really wants to bounce after you've hit it. Don't let it. We don't want to bury the stick in the head, but you want it to bounce and then just kind of catch it. I'll show you what I mean. The difference being is ordinarily your stick just wants to bounce right up, so all we're going to do is we're just going to catch it. After it bounces off the head, just close your hand up a little bit so the stick stays ready to play that ghost note. Let's put that back together with the accents, but again, still this time just on the hi-hat so we can really focus on making it clean. Now in this groove, he's playing it on the stack, and what's interesting about that is it leaves your left foot open to play eighth notes and keep riding time that way. So especially if you start getting quiet on the stack, we still have a solid eighth note pulse. It's part of what really drives this groove. Let's put it down at 60 BPM and give it a shot. So I hope you guys enjoyed playing through those grooves because I had a ton of fun playing them for you. Now, if you want more content like that, right inside the Drumeo Edge members area, we've got full lessons on Benny Greb and hundreds of other things. They're each an hour long. We get to go way more in depth. So if you want to get in on that, just click the link below this video. We have an awesome deal going on right now, and I'll see you all inside Drumeo Edge.